Before we begin to grow intimate with Mariana's despondence and loneliness, it would serve us well to familiarize ourselves with the stylings of Victorian era poetry, especially so because Mariana is in part inspired by a Shakespeare play. It drew less from the fantastical ideals of human life and its interplay with all of nature bright and beautiful that dominated the Romanticism movement and imbued significantly from other art forms. Poetry Foundation, as always, renders an immeasurably articulate primer on the movement. Victorian poetry's most distinctive qualities may stem, paradoxically, from its proximity to other genres and forms. Theatre, fiction, music, and art, all of them poetry's competitors in a fully stocked cultural marketplace. Asking in the 1833 essay, "What is poetry?" the philosopher John Stuart Mill responded with terms pilfered from drama. Poetry is feeling, confessing itself to itself in moments of solitude. All poetry is of the nature of soliloquy. Mariana was a character in Measure for Measure, a dark comedy or tragedy or some contrivance play of sorts, a lover who was abandoned when her dowry was lost in a shipwreck. Our Mariana picks up from there as the abandoned, lonely woman in a house, haunted by a buried fantasy and engulfed by despondence. The poem is a layered portrait of what it means to be alone after you've experienced the touch of human love. While Tennyson and Browning popularized the dramatic monologue as a form of poetry, Mariana is better described as a ballad. A considerably long poem, it is written in 7 stanzas of 12 lines each and falls into a rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B, C, D, D, C, E, F, E, F. Most lines are set to the iambic tetrameter, which is to say they're comprised of 4 iambs or metric structures that have an unstressed syllable following a stressed syllable. The first stanza is a description of her place of residence, a country house. The flower pots have not been tended to and black moss crusts their exterior. The rusted nails holding the place up are falling away. The sheds around the house have not been accessed or been in, represented by the unlifted latch. The roof overhead is weeded and worn out. And in the midst of this unpleasant mess is our woman of the hour, mourning her missing lover and wishing she were dead. She cries all evening, her tears falling with the dew of the evening and falling while they dry up. The country house is not deeply unpleasant. In fact, from the outside perspective of a passerby, it looks like sweet heaven. But her state of mind precludes her from enjoying it at any time of the day. When nighttime comes calling, she draws the curtains and mourns her missing lover, wishing she were dead. The next stanza is a rather troubling description of her insomniac experiences. She would hear birds sing in the middle of the night, which were in all likelihood figments of her imagination and not much else, or walk around the house desperate and caught in some waking trance until morning came when she would, mourn her missing lover and wish she were dead. The scene outside the house is equally sobering. About a stone's throw from the house, there lies a ditch filled with dirty black water and playing host to moss clusters that in all likelihood look rather repugnant. There is a single poplar tree that decorates a landscape which is otherwise absolutely empty. It looks like quite the wasteland, perhaps also suggestive of her emotional health, acute loneliness, misery, and an apathy towards life, love, and all that comes with. The poplar tree has multiple symbolisms in literature, but what would perhaps be relevant to stanza 6 is the one about victory, joy, and transformation. When night falls and the moon is low within the bushes, when the winds are abound, the shadow of the poplar tree dances in her room and finds its way to the bed. It's Mariana's buried love story that leaves her cold and alone. The final 2 stanzas are depictions of an endless silence. Caught where there is little to separate madness and sadness, every tiny sound in the house has an amplified blare. Creaking hinges, singing insects, screeching cots, ticking clocks, sparrow chirrups, and all that lapses she can hear of what was and might never be again, faces, footsteps, and voices. She wishes she were dead, but she wishes it most ardently when the morning comes, as if there was a night before or night after. When you say poetry, among the very first associations is the one of visual imagery, and with good reason. Most poems, especially in the Romantic and Images movements, albeit at very different intensities, relied heavily on using words to paint a picture. And Mariana is no different. We have sobering and provocative descriptions of the depressing state of a house, until it gets to the final few stanzas when every tiny sound is amplified. Alone in the house with nothing but her suicidal thoughts to talk to, Mariana can hear things she wouldn't or shouldn't. Her hallucinatory tendencies are made clear when there are allusions to voices and footsteps. Another aspect of the poem that particularly stands out is the fact that even with no progress except from day to night and from night to day, the refrains and pathetic fallacy employed makes the reader believe that by the end of the poem, Mariana is verged on the very worst of fates.